Arthur Jermyn. Life is a hideous thing. And from the background, behind what we know of it, pure demoniacal hints of truth, which make it sometimes 1,000-fold more hideous. Well, that's not why I'm getting rumbly in the tumbly. I'm delaying eating for this. Science, already oppressive, with its shocking revelations, will perhaps be the ultimate exterminator of our human species. A separate species we be, for its reserve of unguessed horrors could never be borne by mortal brains, if loosed upon the world. If we knew what we are, we should do as Sir Arthur Jermyn did. And Arthur Jermyn soaked himself in oil and set fire to his clothing one night. Well, no, we shouldn't do that. There are Buddhist monks who do that, who have done that, but no. No one placed the charred fragments in an urn or set a memorial to him, who had been, for certain papers and a certain boxed object were found, which made men wish to forget. Some who knew him do not admit that he ever existed. Arthur Jermyn went out on the moor and burned himself after seeing the boxed object which had come from Africa. It was this object, and not his peculiar personal appearance, which made him end his life. Many would have disliked to live if possessed of the peculiar features of Arthur Jermyn, but he had been a poet and a scholar, and had not minded. Learning was in his blood, for his great-grandfather, Sir Robert Jermyn, BT, what's BT stand for? Had been an anthropologist of note, whilst his great-great-great-grandfather, Sir Wade Jermyn, was one of the earliest explorers of the Congo region, and had written eruditely of its tribes, animals, and supposed antiquities. Indeed, old Sir Wade had possessed an intellectual zeal amounting almost to a maniac. His bizarre conjectures on a prehistoric white Congolese civilization earning him much ridicule when his book Observation on the Several Parts of Africa was published. In 1765, this fearless explorer had been placed in a madhouse in Huntingdon. Madness was in all the Jermyns, and people were glad. There were not many of them. The line put forth no branches, and Arthur was the last of it. If he had not been, one could not say what he would have done when the object came. The Jermyns never seemed to look quite right. Something was amiss, though Arthur was the worst, and the old family portraits in Jermyn House showed fine faces enough before Sir Wade's time. Certainly the madness began with Sir Wade, whose wild stories of Africa were at once the delight and terror of his few friends. It showed in his collection of trophies and specimens, which were not such as a normal man would accumulate and preserve, and appeared strikingly in the oriental seclusion in which he kept his wife. The latter, he had said, was the daughter of a Portuguese trader, whom he had met in Africa, and did not like English ways. She, with an infant son born in Africa, had accompanied him back to the second and longest of his trips, and had gone with him on the third and last, never returning. No one had ever seen her closely, not even the servants, for her disposition had been violent and singular. During her brief stay at Jermyn House, she occupied a remote wing and was waited on by her husband alone. Sir Wade was indeed most peculiar in his solicitude for his wife, for when he returned to Africa, he would permit no one to care for his young son, save a loathsome black woman from Guinea. Upon coming back, after the death of Lady Jermyn, he himself assumed complete care of the boy. But it was the talk of Sir Wade, especially when in his cups, which chiefly led his friends to deem him mad. At a rational age like the 18th century, it was unwise for a man of learning to talk about wild sights and strange scenes under a Congo moon, of the gigantic walls and pillars of a forgotten city, crumbling and vine-grown, and of damp, silent stone steps leading intermittently down into the darkness of the abysmal treasure vaults and